Satnam and greetings, everybody. I'm Dhanpal, or you might know me as Donna Quesada, and I'm happy to talk to you today about manifestation, an important and somewhat popular topic. I want to share with you in the course of this short talk what I have found to be 3 essential ingredients to successfully creating or manifesting the kind of reality you want. But first, I want to refer back to the last talk I did on YouTube called Wisdom Bite number 4. It was on thoughts. And we started off by exploring Buddha's famous teaching found in the opening lines of the Dhammapada when he says, "We are what we think," or to put it in another way, everything that we are is a result of what we have thought. And we considered how this goes side by side with this other thing that we're told by all the Zen masters of old, that you are not your thoughts. And that's what we do in Zen. We just keep coming back to this present moment because the thoughts have been compared to secretions. I love that comparison. Or as I like to say, like little bubbles in a pot of boiling water. They just never stop. Thousands in the blink of an eye, my yoga teacher used to say. And they keep coming, and they keep coming. And that's the practice of sitting on your cushion. You learn not to identify with them. That's what psychologists help their patients to do in cognitive behavioral therapy. You learn not to identify with them because they don't stop and they're not you. So which is true, we explored? Well, we understood that both are true and that awareness makes the difference. So with that kind of bringing us up to date, I want to share with you a story from a student of mine. She came up to me with a very worried face, I might add. "Well, Professor Quesada," she said, "can we manifest our worst fears? If there's some aspect in which manifestation is true and in which our thoughts create the universe, what happens when I think bad thoughts about somebody?" And she confessed that she had recently had a fight with her boyfriend, and she was worried that her spiteful thoughts might come true and that she would bring some bad, horrible fate upon her boyfriend. Well, of course, I helped reassure her that alas, no. Most of us, truth be told, are not focused enough to work with our thoughts in such a way that manifestation requires. Yet, there's this other aspect of the situation that we call the self-fulfilling prophecy, where we do kind of bring into fact or bring into our world what we think about, what we begin to identify with, what we begin to habituate with. And with regard to a thought, it's just a form of energy, and there's a dynamic kind of aspect about how they work and how we give them off like a little radio signal. We put our thoughts out there into the universe. We wear it, we exude it, we're chewing on it. It's like we have something taped to our forehead. Worrying is just wishing for what you don't want. So there is this aspect to which this is true. And so we really must watch our thoughts, and that's also what we talked about on the last Wisdom Bite. Truth be told, as the Buddhists say, most of us are not that focused, and we don't need to worry about manifesting bad, horrible things. So we can say, to be totally straight shooting, straightforward about it, yes and no. Really, yes, we exude our thoughts and we create our reality with what we think. But no, we lack the focus to really work with our thoughts in any kind of meaningful way that gives them form and shape. And that becomes the first of those 3 ingredients that I started talking about when I opened up this talk: intention. That would be the number 1 ingredient that I have found to be true in all of my studies and through actual experience of bringing things into reality, of making my own longings and wishes come true. Now, of course, they should not be ego-based. We should make that number 4, but let's stay focused and let's keep on track here. Intention. Intention is number 1. We have to be able to work with our intentions. And I can tell you also as a healer that setting an intention is the first part of any healing work that we do. Of course, getting out of the way is the next part, but being very clear about what your intention is a way to be clear to the universe about what you want to manifest. That is the yes part of the yes and no answer. On one hand, we have monkey mind. On the other hand, with a very clear intention articulated and in place, we start to understand consciousness in a different way. And we as a people are beginning to understand consciousness in a different way. And the more we understand consciousness on a more profound level, the more we see that all matter in the universe exists in this web of connection, this interconnected web in which everything constantly influences everything else. It's like a spider web. You touch one part of it and it sends very subtle vibrations that reverberate throughout the entirety of the web. And that's the universe we live in. We exist amongst all of these subtle laws that start with our thoughts as a very subtle vibratory form, and that affect everything else that we live with in this universe, especially other people. All we have to do is consider a few very common examples of the thought form and how powerful it is in creating this web of causation in our universe. For example, placebos. We now understand time and time again through studies conducted at the most important medical universities the effect that thought has in making ourselves well, that our mind power, our intention, our thoughts, our expectations exude a much more powerful influence on our body, mind, and soul and overall state of well-being than the most successful breakthrough drugs on the market. And the effects of placebos continues to astound scientists. The other thing is prayer. We've done many, many experiments on the power of prayer and on the power of mind form in creating change. One of the most well-known of these studies was done on yeast in Petri dishes. And they asked participants, none of which had any special experience in mind power, or mind control. They asked these participants to stop the growth of yeast. And in an overwhelming majority of cases, they were able to consistently stop the growth of yeast in these bowls. They even repeated the tests over distances and were just simply astounded by the results of what we can accomplish when we set our intention to it. And this is how prayer works. And Lynn McTaggart, in her book that I love called The Intention Experiment, talks about skiers and the role of mind power in training athletes. Skiers were wired up while they were told to run through the skiing event mentally. In other words, they carried out a mental rehearsal of the skiing event. They did their runs, and they very conscientiously focused on every twist and turn in the run. And what they found was that the brain didn't much care whether or not the run was carried out mentally or physically. The same electrical impulses were at work, whether or not the skiers were simply going through a mental rehearsal or doing the real thing. So it's a fascinating thing, this power of consciousness, this power of consciously exerting our intention and very clearly staying focused on that and bringing that into reality. And that's what manifestation is. Now, is it just intention? Is that all there is to it? Is it just focus? That's just a part of it. There's a huge importance placed on feeling. It's like my dearest teacher Guru Singh says in his talks, experience the experience. It's what Wayne Dyer also talks about in his wonderful book, Wishes Fulfilled. The importance of feeling cannot be ignored in manifestation. Feeling what it is you want to bring into reality. And that will be our second feature, or the second ingredient of manifestation. Experience the experience. He wants us to experience what it feels like to be still, to be centered. He wants us to experience that meditative awareness, because most of the time we're not. We're lost in our heads. So getting out of our head is the first step in entering into that place of stillness, that place of wholeness, that place that we say in spiritual traditions of oneness, where we are wholly undivided, non-distracted awareness. That's samadhi. And that's when we understand that we are inextricably a part of this universe. And so manifestation becomes effortless because we are it. We're not separate from it. And so experiencing that reality as it's taking place, being present with it, we might say, is a prerequisite of creation itself. And creation is manifestation. We are at the heart of this vibratory nucleus called reality, where manifestation is simply the unfolding of it, the flowering of reality with us in the center of it as creators. We bring our reality into motion by being wholly present with it. So we clearly set our intention and we feel it. We experience it. What does it feel like? Saying to ourselves, what do I want to feel? What feelings do I want to amplify? And consciously feeling those feelings, we affect our well-being, we affect our universe, we shape our reality. Now you might say, but feeling doesn't sound so controlled or so conscious, and you have that stereotypical case of the woman in the 1950s who's hysterical, and I know that's very politically incorrect, but it's this image we have of out-of-control emotions. Well, we're not talking about, as Yogi Bhajan would say, emotion and commotion. We're talking about consciously choosing what we want to feel. And by the way, that's free will in yogic spiritual philosophy. That, from the yogic perspective, is what we mean by consciously choosing which thoughts to focus on rather than the other way around. The more aware we are, the more power we have. It's a proportional relationship, as you might say in physics. Unconscious simply means being hopelessly enslaved by those thoughts which give rise to our emotions, which give rise to our feelings and our overall mood and our overall state of well-being. And when we are hopelessly enslaved by our thoughts, which landslides into all of that, we don't have free will at all. It's like being pounded time and time again by waves in a storm and not being able to get out from under them. And that's how many people live their lives, hopelessly enslaved by their thoughts. And when you answer to those thoughts, it becomes compulsive behavior. Unconscious simply means being pounded by the onslaught of constant self-defeating thoughts, like waves in a storm, pounding us and pounding us. And that's what those thoughts do. And those thoughts carry on into our emotions and into the feelings that we begin to feel as a habit every day, and we begin to exude it. And for so many people, they try to get out from under these waves with pills and thrills and other short-lived frills in a bottle. There, I couldn't resist. But it doesn't work. It's just a trap. And the only way to get out of that trap is by coming into our own conscious awareness. And that's free will. The more conscious you are, the more freedom you have. It's proportional. That's obsessive compulsive behavior, when you can't get out from underneath those waves, those mind waves. But free will is being able to stop that landslide in its tracks and stop it from catapulting us into that insanity, samsara. It's when we're able to say, no, I don't want to feel that way. And so consciously choosing what we want to feel is a bit like wagging the dog, because we're coming at it from the point of view of feelings rather than starting with the thought. We're saying, I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel joy. I want to feel happy. I want to feel peaceful. And so I'm going to stop and I'm going to experience that feeling and I'm going to embody it. I'm going to wear it. I'm going to exude it. I'm going to let that be who I am. It's like saying, I'll believe it when I feel it. So we're coming at it from the other way. That's the wagging the dog. We're stopping it from escalating into feelings, into our overall mood. And people read that. It's like wearing a sign on our foreheads. And so when we are able to stop and say, I want to choose to be happy. I want to choose to control my mind. And controlling the mind, although it's been part of the yogic practice for 5,000 years, is still a relatively new idea in the West. As recently as the 1950s, we thought that the brain was like Jell-O. It solidified by the time we were teenagers, and you got what you got. But now we understand, with the help of the monks and understanding what happens to the brain during processes of becoming more aware, for example, during meditation, we understand that the mind is really very moldable. The brain itself is plastic. The term is neuroplasticity. We can reshape these neural processes that happen in our very brains by stopping and by becoming conscious and by saying, I don't want to be enslaved by these thought forms. I want to be the one to choose how I want to feel. And so in that way, it becomes very constructive, not destructive. And so by stopping and bringing our feelings into our conscious awareness and embodying that feeling, we come to believe it. We come to believe that this is our reality. And that's when it becomes wholly empowering. That's when we begin to imprint into every fiber of our being, into every cell of our being, into every cell of our body, into every part of our psyche, this reality, this feeling, this projection, this new perspective. And we begin to think differently. Our thoughts follow. And we begin to know that we are capable of shaping our reality by stopping and experiencing the experience. And it's a very conscious process, because there's a big difference between choosing our feelings and letting our feelings choose us. An example would be, I am joy, or I am peace, I am light, I am prosperous. And to prosper is simply to do well. It's not to be greedy. It's to do well so that you can serve in the way you were meant to serve in this existence, so that you can fulfill the mission that you came here to fulfill. Because if you're in your head swimming around, you can't do what you came here to do. You can't be present for your very life. Now notice, when I proclaimed these feelings, these realities, when I used these kinds of affirmations, which is what they are, they're positive affirmations. I am prosperous, I am healthy, I am well, I am joy. Notice I used the present tense. And that becomes number 3, the third ingredient of manifestation. So far we've said intention is the first ingredient, feeling is the second, and third is the present tense. Now Dyer also talks about this in his book Wishes Fulfilled, but this actually goes way back in Indian spirituality, like that well-known beloved spiritual classic, I Am That, or like many of the mantras that we chant in the Vedic or Tantric traditions. I am that I am, or hummy hum badum hum, or Sat Nam, we say to one another. We don't say, I will be truth, or I will be what I am. We say, I am that I am. Hummy hum badum hum, what is already is, now. Time is just another illusion. Sat Nam, I am truth, my name is truth, my identity is now. Not will be truth at some other time. The minute you posit your affirmation in the future tense, you are confirming simultaneously that you're not that now, but you would like to be. That's not good enough. And so we use the present tense so as to proclaim it as a fact now, so that your psyche has nothing but to understand that this is the truth. Because again, time is just an illusion. It's simply a matter of this truth coming into fruition, of unfolding into this truth that already is. And this Positive proclamation, affirmation in the present tense takes us beyond the facades, beyond the superficialities, beyond those superficial identities that we create in our day-to-day lives that are limited. I am a doctor, I am a teacher, I am a wife, I am a mother. We are all of these things, yes, it's true, but we are so much more. And from the perspective of spirit, all of these things are just temporary guises, like the shoes that we wear to go to the store. And we shed these guises because what we really are has no limitations at all. Like reality itself, we are unlimited, and the possibilities are unlimited. And so we go deeper, we go under, beneath, beyond, behind those limited identities and facades, to that eternal essence of what we are right now, which has no limitations. And we enter into those infinite possibilities and we realize them by proclaiming it as fact. Right here, right now, we affirm it. We affirm it to be. Thank you for watching. In gratitude.